we'll get started. And there may be a few people trickling in. Sort of a mixed message about, I know the group yesterday was quite large, so hopefully that means that our system is so good that a lot of people feel comfortable using it already. Try not to take it personally. Anyway, thank you for showing up, and my name is Scott Zimmer. I'm the University Librarian at Alliant. Been here for about a year. And what University Librarian means is I'm the director here in San Diego, and then I supervise the directors of the other campuses too. You've probably heard the word system-wide, which means that my role applies to all the campuses. So I'm the system-wide librarian, if that makes it any easier. And I appreciate this chance to work with you about this and hopefully increase your comfort level with the library resources that we have. And I would like it to be more of a dialogue, if that works for you. So I don't think I've ever spoken for 2 hours straight, and I don't want to start today. So please feel free to interrupt me anytime you have questions or want to go into something in more detail. I've just got, hopefully a pretty brief PowerPoint thing to go through, mostly so I remember, all the things that I need to talk about. And then we'll spend quite a bit of time actually looking at how to access the resources, how to do different searches. Hello, come on in. And by all means, if you have topics that you're having trouble with, or if you're willing to volunteer to be our test case, then I'll probably draw on you so we have something to go by. Any questions before we get started? Okay. Hello. Welcome. So, to start things off, I just wanted to give a brief overview of what we'll be talking about. Nice typo on the first slide. Whoops. So we'll talk a little bit about expectations, particularly grammatical ones. Then I'll give you a brief overview of library resources. It's not totally something that you need to keep in the front of your mind all the time, but it will help you navigate the system and realize, sometimes there's more than one way to skin a cat, I guess, and one way is faster than the other. So it'll help you choose the fastest option for getting a hold of material you need. Then we will, like I said, we'll spend a bunch of time demonstrating different processes, and we'll sort of jump back and forth between the slides and doing that. And then toward the end, there's some sort of advanced techniques, not really that difficult, but these are ways to make information come to you instead of you having to go do a search every week or something like that. Some of you may be familiar with a lot of this material. I'm hoping that at least some of it is new to most of you. So you'll notice that some of these are kind of corny because I tend to get kind of bored when I'm making a PowerPoint. So the first one is, I couldn't pass this up when I found it, but I wanted to hear from you a little bit about your experience with using the library website and how it's been for you accessing resources, and if there are things that have been particularly difficult or anything like that.
My biggest thing is when the link plus, clicking on the link plus and then nothing showing up.
That would be bad, sure.
And that's happened with most of the articles that I've been trying to access.
Articles.
And then I go through all the different steps to try and locate it.
Right.
And it just sends me in a
loop.
Circle.
Yeah.
And I don't get anywhere.
That is a problem. Hopefully what we do will make it a little easier to navigate, but it is, and I'll get to it in a minute, it's an issue called discovery, which is a big term in the library field these days. Discovery basically means making it obvious for the searcher to know that we actually own something or have access to it. Because we've got tons of stuff, but in many cases it's hard to find out that we have it and where it is. So we'll definitely be focusing on that.
And I found that when I do try to access articles, that there's no PDF option. It's that green thing. What is that green? It's inaccessible, in other words.
Right.
I can't remember. It's green. I'm very visual, as you can tell. But I can't remember the name of it. It's not a PDF. It's not an HTML. It's an organization I think you have to go through.
Oh, Science Direct. I think they're using a green color scheme right now.
Right. And so there are a lot of good things out there, but I don't know how to access them.
Right. And that gets back to this discovery thing, too, where we have so many different systems interacting. We subscribe to about 38 different databases, and most of those are from separate companies, and they all have their own interfaces. So everything's in a slightly different place, even though they're all doing the same thing. So the challenge for us is to make all those things work together and lead you to the full text that you're looking for. And it's challenging, obviously. So, but yeah, we'll be concentrating on the steps that you need to do to make sure that if it's there, you're going to find it. So that should be good. Any other feedback, initial impressions, things like that? Okay. Bye, Mr. Rogers. Let's see here. So I like to, usually when I speak to classes outside the dissertation camp, I try to give them just 3 things to keep in mind. So if you don't already know these, and many of you probably do, you do want to focus on them. The first one is the address of the library website, which is library.alliant.edu. And we try to make that the central point through where all the services go through. So definitely bookmark that, make it your home page, whatever works best for you. But that's going to be a good starting place for everything you do. The next one is not so intuitive. This is who you ask for. Hello. Come on in. Library@alliant.edu. In addition, as part of streamlining the whole process and helping you know what you're supposed to do when you run into trouble, we're trying to make this a single point of contact. So if you have questions about research, you think you've done something correctly but you want to make sure, anything at all, just shoot a message to library@alliant.edu. Whether it's good or bad, we'll see, but that goes directly to me. And if it's something that I can handle, then I'll generally do that. In some cases, I'll have to pass it along to somebody else, but it's not going to go in an inbox where somebody checks it once a week or anything like that. It's going to get taken care of if you use that address. Along those same lines, I know some of you, I'm going to move over here because that thing is blinding me. Some people like doing a lot of chat online. We were talking about Skype a little bit ago. The library website does have a chat feature now. And during our operating hours when staff are available, you can also interact with us that way. And then the last one, do not pay. Hello. What I'm referring to here is something that you've probably all seen. You find an abstract for an article that would be perfect, and it says, click here to pay $30 for the article. Really don't want you to do that. The only good thing about that is you get it instantly. But in many cases, we also have access to it instantly. It's just a matter of finding out what the pathway is to get to it. And even if we don't have instant access to it, you can order it for free through interlibrary loan. And it should get to you in usually less than a week. Okay? So whenever you see those things inviting you to get out your credit card, please, if at all possible, just don't do that, because your tuition is paying for all these different databases, and we would really like to not have you spend extra money. Okay?
So is that a situation where maybe we would email you and
yes. Yep. What we're going to go over today is I'm going to show you what I do when you send me that citation, because I just do 2 or 3 steps to find out if we're entitled to access to it, and if we're not, then I'll tell you, yeah, that's one you need to order through interlibrary loan. Or if we do have it, I'll say, here you go, here's the PDF. But definitely, anytime you have a question about it, just check in with that address. Alrighty. Let's see what's next. Yes. I came across this the other day. It was a bumper sticker. I think it's originally from Carrie Fisher. Instant gratification takes too long. And I just wanted to say a couple things about it. On the one hand, I totally understand that you're grad students, you're working full-time with at least one job. Many of you have children, so you don't often have a lot, 2 or 3 weeks to wait for material to get to you. So you're working under deadlines, and we do get that. At the same time, we really want to encourage you to start the research process in advance of your deadline by as much as you possibly can. And that might just mean putting in an hour or 2 here and there at the beginning of a semester. I understand for dissertations it's different. It's kind of a long process, and you expect it to be dragged out a little bit. But the more lead time that you can give us, that really increases the likelihood that we can get the material you want at little or no cost. So we sort of live in a culture where we want everything right now, online in full text. So I just want to, give you permission to slow down a little bit. And part of the research process is also not just finding all this information immediately, but you're going to need time to digest it, to analyze it, to synthesize it. So you can slow down a little bit. And usually when I'm working one-on-one with a student, what I try to do is we see what's available immediately, so you have something that you can start working on right away. And then the other things, we place orders for those, and then by the time you get done with the beginning material, those will start arriving. So hopefully that helps. I don't mean to be an apologist for the fact that it takes a while for stuff to get here, but just adding another perspective. So let's see, next we have. So I wanted to talk a little bit about just the library overall and how we operate. You're probably aware Alliant has 6 locations throughout California. We also have a Mexico City campus with a small library. Those are obviously the locations. We have full-service libraries in San Diego, LA, San Francisco, and Fresno. The ones in Sacramento are really quite small, about half the size of this room. They're sort of like delivery locations for students to pick up material that has been requested. And spread out over those different locations, there's about 140,000 books, 7,200 electronic books, which can be accessed from any place. Print journals, each year we go through those and try to convert them to electronic access because it makes it easier for everybody, ourselves included. But we still have about 400 of those hanging around. And then through the different databases that we purchase, we have access to the full text of about 2,400 journals online. What's not included in that list are the hundreds of thousands of citations that we have access to, and that's what lets you know that the item exists, and then you can go ahead and order it if we don't have access to it. Are you ready? Hello? Yeah, come on in. Somebody mentioned Link Plus earlier. What that is our library belongs to it, and it's sort of like a membership in a big consortium, and there's over 50 libraries in it right now, spread mostly through California. There's 1 or 2 in Nevada, and patrons at any of those libraries can search a combined catalog of, 32 million items that all of those places own, and place requests for those items. So we're constantly shuffling materials back and forth around all these member libraries. So if the book that you want isn't owned by Alliant, but maybe the Claremont colleges have it, you can place a Link Plus request for that, and usually it arrives in 2 to 3 days. And we'll talk about what that looks like and how to do that. This is sort of a diagram of what we're going to be doing and how to think of the system overall. So you'll see that what we do is start out at the center of this diagram and move outward. Hopefully we don't have to move too far. The only reason we would get out this far is if we keep failing to locate the material that we're looking for. So we would first begin by searching to see if it's at Alliant's San Diego campus, because that's going to be most convenient for us. Or if it's online in full text, that would be just about the same. If that's not available, then we'll move to the next less convenient option, and that would be searching other Alliant locations, because we can easily transfer it back and forth between those. If we strike out there too, we would go and search the Link Plus network and see if we can borrow it from another institution that we're affiliated with. That has a 2 to 3 day delay. And then finally, if we just totally have no luck whatsoever, we can still do an interlibrary loan request, and that's really where we get it from any place on Earth. Depending on how much we're willing to pay, we could have it sent over from Europe if we had to. So, again, we start out at the middle, and as it becomes necessary, we keep looking. And this would apply to looking for books or journal articles. Questions on that? Yes?
Do we pay for it if it's not within those first 2 or 3?
Nope.
Okay.
The only thing you're paying for is, you're not paying in currency, you're paying in time. So if Alliant doesn't have it or it's not online, then transferring it from another campus probably takes 1 or 2 days, not counting weekends. Link Plus usually takes 2 to 3 days, not counting weekends. Interlibrary loan can take a while. It depends how rare the item is and how far away it is, really. So if it's in some weird journal from 1960 that's only held by public library in Arkansas, that's going to take a while to get here. But again, for ILL, we don't charge a fee unless the lending institution is going to charge us in excess of $15. So usually we can get it for free. Sometimes, if we can only get it from Harvard, let's say, they might charge us $30. So before we accept those charges, we would ask you, are you willing to pay $15 to get this item? Hey, you ready? Let's see what else is here. Ah, yes, discovery. I mentioned this earlier, and this is the main problem that I encounter because I use these systems all the time too. So it's not a case where I'm telling you to use it, but I don't really pay attention to how it works. When I help students, or if I'm looking for something for a faculty member, I have to go through all these steps that I'm going to be showing you. So the main problem that I have encountered is this discovery issue, where we have access to tons of stuff, but it's not obvious at all, unless you're an experienced librarian and experienced in this system, how to get to it. So there's a couple different ways we can approach that. One of them would be to spend tens of thousands of dollars, tuition dollars I might add, on discovery software, which would ease that process a little bit. And we consider that, but we're still looking for a good solution. The other option is training, which is why we love opportunities like this, where we can show you, the steps that you need to go through to make sure that if it's there, you will discover it. Make sense? Cool. Alrighty. So we can start doing some work with examples right now. As far as finding books, you'll remember back to that circular thing. First, we want to look for it at Alliant's San Diego campus. If we don't find it there, we'll search other Alliant campuses. And if we don't find it there, which means Alliant just doesn't own it at all, we're going to search the Link Plus catalog. And if that doesn't work, we're going to do an interlibrary loan request. The one snag that we often encounter as librarians, as we sort of monitor how people are using the system, is quite often people will, for whatever reason, they'll request it through interlibrary loan without trying Link Plus. And the reason you don't want to do that is the interlibrary loan could take 3 to 4 weeks to get here if it's an unusual item. Whereas if it's in Link Plus, that's going to be 2 or 3 days. So when we can, if we see that somebody's done this, we go in and catch it and delete this one and replace it with one of these. But it's really good if you can get in the habit of going through in this order, because that's going to get the material to you the fastest. I'm tired of PowerPoint here. Let's just do some practice searching here. So this is the library catalog. And everybody used this recently? Okay, cool. So just want to point out a couple of features before we try the examples. Ask a Librarian. This is, let's see if it's working. Please let it work. No. Ordinarily, there would be a chat window here. And this is where you can interact in real time with a library staff member. You also have the option of, calling us on the phone, emailing us, whatever works best for you. I should point out too that we're happy to make one-on-one appointments. So there's me, there's a couple of other reference librarians, and we work with people all the time. If you want to set aside a block of time and work with us on that. So to search the catalog for a book, we have 2 different options for doing that. Right here, this is the sort of Google-like search interface, and this is usually the one I prefer. There's also a classic catalog, which is a little more traditional looking and gives you some different options here. Does anybody have a topic that they would like to offer?
I have a topic, but I never go to the classic catalog. I go to the research database.
Uh-huh.
Is that wrong to go there? Or?
It's not wrong. It's just a different thing. Research databases are going to
Because I'm always looking for articles.
Right. Sure. And that's what you'll find in here. Most of these databases have
I can never find anything. Not
Really?
one article on the dissertation. Not one.
What's your topic?
Okay. It's self-imposed isolation for African Americans.
Mm-hmm.
And I've tried African Americans. A lot come up. I tried isolation by itself. A lot has come up. But self-imposed isolation doesn't exist.
Okay.
Or unless I'm doing something wrong. That's what I was thinking.
The only thing, you wouldn't be doing anything wrong. What often happens in database searches, though, is there might be a few things there, but they're using different terms than you are.
Okay, so I just used 3 different approaches. So what would be another approach to help me find at least one article?
What is often a good idea is to, everybody knows Venn diagrams, right? The circles that intersect. So if I knew how to use the smartboard better, I would show it. But we like to group synonyms in each of those Venn diagram circles. So in one, we would have one sort of concept area like African American. And synonyms would be blacks, depending on what database we're using, Afro-Americans, or, God help us, Negroes, because some of the older materials index that way. And then another concept area would be the isolation part. So there might be some clinical terminology that applies better than isolation does. Like, I don't know, misanthropy or something, whatever it happens to be. And then the third one would be the self-imposed part. So for each of those areas, we want to think of as many alternatives as we can. And what we often do is, before we actually research for articles, we do some research for appropriate terminology.
Okay, so what I did is then I went to psychology first, and then I went to psychology, and then I went to African Americans, and I tried blacks, and I tried, I think there was one more term, it wasn't Negro, there was another term that I used. And then, and just like I said, articles came up, but how that in the Venn diagram, self-imposed,
It might turn out to be something. Well, I'm going to save this one until we do the article searching. So I'll jump back right now and do some book searching. But one of them might be choice.
Choice?
For self-imposed.
Okay.
Because, personal choice. That could be what's called a subject heading.
Okay.
In each database, there's databases. They have keyword searching, which searches every part of the record, right? And there you can use normal terminology like people use in conversation. One part of the record, though, is subject headings, and those are official terms that have been assigned by a human indexer to describe the material. So, and sometimes those are not really intuitive. So it might be a phrase that wouldn't occur to any of us. Instead of, if we're looking for stuff about thought processes, the indexers might call that cognitive methods or something weird like that. So by doing that initial research about terminology, we can turn up some of those terms and use those as alternatives. We'll give this a try, though. Just at this point, for purposes of demonstration, I'm just going to use that subject and do some book searches so we can see the different interfaces.
If you can find a book, I'll be thrilled.
Sure. Let's try. See if anything comes up. Isolation in African American is what I typed in. Totally not what we're looking for is this first record here, women with visible and invisible disabilities. But I do just want to use this to show you some different features of how the system works. So we've done an initial search. We could, let's say we had more than one item. We could sort this by title or by date by using these links here. This is also a brief version of this record. So by clicking on the title, we can find out a little bit more about it. And in some cases, it'll have, like this is a table of contents for the book. And it's highlighted in the search terms that we used. I mentioned the subject heading, so this is an example of one of those. So while we might be searching for handicapped women, it turns out that the subject heading in use is women with disabilities. So that would be another teachable moment for us. Another very important thing to keep in mind is where it says available here, that does mean it's available for checkout, but you want to notice that it's at the San Francisco main collection. So that means that if you want this book, let's see, where am I? over here. You would need to click here to request it, and our system is, let's see, it's going to ask you who you are, more than likely. Yellow. Oh, nice. Brilliant. Our IT department thoughtfully renewed its security certificates over the break, and we're still trying to sort out the difficulties.
Oh, really? Can't log
Yeah.
on.
So, usually, if you keep digging, it gives you an option to bypass this warning, so that's what I'm doing.
So you're saying they are renewing them, or they have to pay or something?
Yeah, websites have security certificates, which means that they have to register with something called a certificate authority, which is basically a way of verifying that we're really Alliant University and not the mafia in Russia or something. So. Yeah. Kind of nice to get it over with before classes start, though. So what this sort of ugly thing looks like is it's just asking you to log in with your name and either your barcode or your student ID. Either one will work. And then it's going to send that item from San Francisco to San Diego. So.
And so what, we get an email from the library saying it's here, you can pick it up?
Yep. Yeah, those notices like that go out every morning at like 6 a.m., so that's when they'll turn up. Let's see. There we go. To show you a couple of other things here. I had mentioned earlier that we want to first see if this is available at Alliant in San Diego. So one of the easy ways to limit our search results is by location. In this case, we only have one option because it's only one item. But if this book were held at different Alliant libraries, you would see San Francisco, Fresno, LA, whatever else. And all you have to do is click on it. Let me show you a better example. So over here we can narrow down by location. So if we wanted just things that are in San Diego, we'll pick those. And now we just have the 31 from San Diego. And we're looking for a book, so we could just narrow it down by book as well. So you can use these filters in lots of different combinations. It's a pretty easy way to do it. One more time here. If you're the social type, you can also add reviews and things like that to these. Occasionally you'll see something like this, show all 3 copies or volumes. And this can be a good thing to do, just to make sure you're not requesting a book that you think is in San Diego, but it's actually at another campus.
And then over on the right there, what social isolation, is that just another option for you?
It is. This is potentially useful, but not right now, because this is a tag cloud, and what it's doing is taking terms that are associated with that item and thinking of synonyms for them, and then making them into sort of clickable searches. So
Well, that's good.
it is, but it's not very fleshed out yet. So the terms aren't really being added by Alliant users. They're just sort of general terms that come out of a thesaurus. So if we follow those, it's good in the sense that we were talking about, where it's going to give you alternatives that you could search by. But the searches in our system might not be that fruitful. But you could definitely take some of those terms from the cloud and take those over to an article database and try them out there too. That would be a good idea.
And the way that you got to this screen, besides clicking on the right, preceding that, was by typing it in the search field?
Yep. We started out at the library homepage, and we just... Encore is just the fancy Google-like version of our catalog. It's searching the same content as a classic catalog, just in a little more intuitive way. So, yeah, we just typed in some terms, and then we got here.
How you got there.
Yep.
And then from there, you can select that if it's appropriate, which it isn't in this case.
Right. Let's see. We can find out more about it. If this were a book that we wanted to, we already went through how to request it since it's in San Francisco. If we were at San Diego, what you would do is make sure that it's available, that somebody else hasn't checked it out. And this is the call number, so you just go out to the shelf and locate it that way. Let's try one other thing. This is just a general search for anything mentioning African Americans. I'm going to look at you'll notice one category here, online. Hopefully this is not going to be disappointing. So this is a quick way to find electronic books on your subject. And these are more of a lifesaver for people who are not at the dissertation stage like you are, because they come in handy if you need one more source and your assignment is due tomorrow. But just so you know what you're seeing when these pop up in your other searches, like this one here, Career Counseling for African Americans, and there's a note that it's an electronic book. So we click on that, we should be able to get through to the full text. Let's see here. Thank God it worked. So then you can just read the entire book right here. There's about...
you got that by clicking online?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, the location code for that indicates online. So that means it's accessible from any place that has an internet connection. Yeah. Important thing with these, though, some of our patrons get too clever for their own good, and they realize that, oh, this is through NetLibrary. So next time I'm at Starbucks, I'm just going to go to netlibrary.com and be able to access all the textbooks that Alliant has. It doesn't work like that because if you're not going through the links that are on the library website, it doesn't know you're associated with Alliant. So it thinks you don't have the rights to view anything. So you'll notice that up here in the address, there's some information that indicates it knows where we're from. So tempting to do that for some people, but you want to go through the links that are on either our catalog or our database pages. Okay, so that's just a basic way of searching for books in our catalog. And you saw that it's pretty easy to narrow the search just to things that are at San Diego. All you have to do is look over here under location and click on the appropriate one. Now, let's talk about Link Plus. There's a couple ways of doing that. We can search Link Plus directly. So let's say you've got a list of 10 books and you want to know if Alliant has them. You've gone through and searched them all in our catalog, and maybe we don't. There's 7 of them that we don't have. So you want to go search those at Link Plus. You can just follow that link directly. And here we'll see. It's a similar interface to our library catalog, but when you're searching Link Plus, you're searching those 50 million items that are the combined holdings of all the libraries. 32 million, 50 libraries. So it found 20 results, and those are just 20 items that mention those 3 words. Default sort is by relevance. Never trust that when it says that, because it doesn't have a very good idea of what's relevant to you. So sometimes it's better to sort by date. Obviously sort by title if you know exactly what you're looking for. And let's say this one about segregation was interesting for us. So if we want to get a hold of that, click on the title link, and I can either take a look at what libraries own it. Sometimes this is helpful, sometimes not. Or I can just go ahead and click on request. And to fulfill the requests, the system knows where it is, but it needs to know where to send it and who's going to use it. So we specify that we're with Alliant. Submit that. Then you're going to log in the same way you do to our library website. Oops. And I must specify a pickup location. Thank you. So this is handy. San Diego, and submit. And unless there's some some problem with the item or with your record, it's usually going to tell you that the request was successful. And just in case you care, it tells you where it's coming from. That actually can be useful information, because if it were coming from someplace in Northern California, then you know it's probably going to take a couple days extra to get here. But this one will probably be here either tomorrow or the next day. Any questions on that? All right.
I'm sorry, yes, just one.
Mm-hmm.
Can you renew the books as if you had picked them up here through Link Plus?
Usually. It's, we can't give a blank... Sorry. We can't give a blanket answer because the policies of the owning institution apply to all the different items. So there's 50 different policies, and those might be different for each item too. But the best thing to do is, when it's coming time for you to return it, you go up to My Library Account and pull your hair out, because you're looking at this thing again. And let's see. Oops. And if you go in here, down here, once it's checked out to you, you'll see it show up.
Yeah.
And usually you can either renew that item or renew all items. And this is actually the way that you have to do it if you want to renew it, because if you call us, we'll tell you to do this too, because one of the weird things about Link Plus is, in order to renew it correctly, we can't do it for you through the back end. It has to be done through the web interface. So, and if it turns out that it can't be renewed, we really can't do anything about it, because it's not our policy. It's the policy of the library that owns it. But the best thing to do is to go into Link Plus, order another copy of it, and then return the one that you have. And that way, when you bring that one back, you can probably pick up another one. So.
If there's another one out there.
Right. If there's not another one out there, that would be a time to do an interlibrary loan request. So. Or if you're really in a pickle and nobody has what you want, and interlibrary loan doesn't seem like it's going to work, email, guess who, library@alliant.edu. We may be able to just buy a copy of it, and that might be the fastest thing to get it to you. So. Okay. I did want to step back here for a minute. So I mentioned that there's a couple ways of using Link Plus. One of them is to search the catalog directly, like we just did. The other one is, you'll notice that when we do a search here, on this results page, in addition to the items in the middle that are owned by Alliant, over here, it's automatically doing a Link Plus search for you using those same terms. So it's pretty easy to just click on that, and then it's going to find all the stuff that mentions your keywords in the same kind of display. So if we wanted this one, same process, just do a request. And then specify what location. Submit. Really nice thing about Link Plus is, as of last summer, this is totally not going to help you with your dissertation, but you can borrow DVDs and audiobooks. So instead of paying Audible $10 a month to have audiobooks, or Netflix or whatever, you can get a lot of stuff through here for nothing. So.
Does the Link Plus work for articles too?
Unfortunately, no.
That's the problem I was running into.
Yes,
with Link Plus
exactly.
articles.
That would be nice. There is the reason Link Plus exists is because all the members of it use the same library catalog software. And because we all use the same company, it's easy for them to just plug everything into each other, and we can all search together and share together. There's a product that does that for articles, but so far not enough other places have adopted it for us to be able to adopt it, if that makes any sense. So hopefully at some point we'll get to that, but we've got to, I think, pull California's economy out of the toilet before any of us will be able to afford that. In the meantime, any questions on book searching? So we know how to search Alliant's catalog to see what we own, and to see what campus it would be at, and to place a request for it if it's not at our campus. Then we just went over how to do two different ways of finding out if Link Plus has access to the book that we need. The third option, if none of those work out, would be to do an interlibrary loan request. And the link for that is right here. And you're going to use the same link whether you're requesting an article or a book or a dissertation, whatever it might be. The only thing you want to make sure of is that you're not clicking this before you've searched all the other things that we've talked about.
Yeah, the one question about interlibrary loan.
Sure.
How many days or each day?
Unfortunately, it varies depending on how rare the item is that you're requesting. So if it's a book that's been that was published more than a year or so ago and is owned by lots of different people, probably we can get that within a week or so. Same thing for an article. If it's a fairly common publication that it's coming from, then we can usually get that within a week or less. Quite often
Are there any limitations? How many dissertation or how many books we can loan from the interlibrary loan or articles?
Technically, no. There are some practical limitations, so it's usually a good idea to space out your requests, maybe 10 or 15 per day. Yes?
You said books, articles, and what else did you say?
Dissertations. So, assuming that we've verified that Alliant doesn't own it and Link Plus doesn't have access to it, we can click on Interlibrary Loan. And, like I said, you use this for anything, regardless of what you're looking for. So, if we were wanting to... We use Journal as the default, because that's usually what people want. If we wanted to request a book instead, we would click on that. And we fill in as much of this information as we have. By no means do you need to fill all of it in. And stuff like OCLC number, there's no way that you would even know that, so don't worry about it. If you want to specify a cancel by date, go ahead and do that. Not required. This would mean if you had an assignment due by the end of the semester, you wouldn't need the material after that date, so you could put that in. You can also leave it blank, though, and just click on Submit when you're done. And in most cases, you'll get, assuming this is current, you'll get an email immediately, which is just a verification that your request was placed. And then once the item has been received by our librarian and is ready for you to pick up, you'll get another email telling you that, too. Okay. So any questions on book searching? So, look in Encore, look in Link Plus, look in Interlibrary Loan. Interlibrary Loan, you'll notice too, go ahead.
No, can you just remind me the second way that you got into Link Plus?
Sure.
Instead of going directly, was it over there in Search Encore?
Yeah, when you do any kind of search in Encore, it's automatically submitting your terms to Link Plus too.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I was going to say too that one thing that makes it a little easier for you maybe is with Encore and Link Plus, you sort of have to care about where this thing is, what campus it is, or what library has it. With Interlibrary Loan, we're not asking you to worry about that at all, because you tell us what you want, and we find out where it is. So sometimes people get in the middle of that step, and they feel like they're missing something or forgetting one of the steps. So, not the case. I'm going to jump back here for a second. Let's go to the next one. Finding dissertations. Okay, so I mentioned this just a minute ago too. Obviously everybody knows what a dissertation is because you're writing one. I've done a lot of undergrad classes, so don't be offended by it. Finding dissertations is actually not as pointless or as painful as you might think. Quite often it's a good way of finding something very specific. Dissertations obviously tend to be on a very narrow part of a broader topic. So in many cases you can find one that's at least partially relevant to the work that you're doing. And one of the nice things about finding a dissertation that's close to yours is you can take advantage of its bibliography and sort of ransack the resources that are in there and find those on your own and use them for your own work. So there's a couple ways of finding dissertations. If you're looking for, and sometimes your chair or other faculty member will tell you, oh, such and such person did a dissertation on that 3 years ago, go check it out. So you can search in the Alliant catalog if it was a dissertation done at Alliant or at USIU. But usually what's the more useful option is to look at one of our databases, which is ProQuest Digital Dissertations and Theses. And ProQuest is a big company that sort of aggregates all published dissertations, mainly in North America. And all of those, barring a very small few, are available online in full text if they were done in 1997 or later.
What is it called?
ProQuest Digital Dissertations. And because it's a database, you'll find it on the Research Databases page, which we will look at right now. Let's see. So I mentioned if it's an Alliant dissertation, we can also search it in Encore. So let's try subject term empathy. And you'll notice that one of the filters that we have built in over here is thesis. And we use thesis to cover both PsyD projects and doctoral dissertations. So if we wanted all the dissertations that mention the word empathy, just click on that.
And these are all Alliant?
Yes.
Can you cut in isolation and see if
Absolutely. And then need to narrow it down again to thesis. Yep. And again, it's doing the relevancy thing, so I'm going to have it stop that. And then from this point, it's quite similar to looking through the book searches that we were doing. Some of these are from sort of inaccessible locations. Yeah.
But that student was here.
Right, and more than likely we'll be able to find this online in ProQuest, because along with everybody else in North America, we submit our dissertations to ProQuest. So that's another thing that people sort of don't always make the connection, that this is just searching what we have in hard copy at one of our campuses, but there's also the electronic version available out there too.
Does the library have the link to the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C. for dissertation?
The Library of Congress has a searchable catalog, which is freely available. They're more of a repository, so we can't really borrow things that they own.
But can we bring it up? Can we look at?
Yep, you can search their catalog, definitely.
Okay.
There's actually a bigger catalog, too, which we'll look at in the databases page, called WorldCat. And this, in the same way that Link Plus is a merged catalog of all these 50 libraries in California, WorldCat is a merged catalog of just about every library that's big enough to be computerized in the world. So it's got tons and tons of stuff. It's really, like, if you want to find out if something even exists, WorldCat is the place to go, because more than likely it'll be in there.
Wow, so interesting. Yeah.
So, let's see. WorldCat is sort of it's the backbone that we use when we're doing interlibrary loan. So you tell us what you want. We look in WorldCat to see, because it also tells us not only what exists, but who owns it. So anyway, this is how to find dissertations that are bound and printed at Alliant libraries.
Can you find the dissertations that people wrote by their names also?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah.
So can you try Angela Spencer?
I can do that.
From about 20 years ago.
Okay. Spencer, you said?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, yeah,
And she was here.
Yes, she's a professor here now.
Don't see it in here.
Okay, try it with the F instead of C. Try F.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the name.
Does she have a maiden name?
No, that's the name she used.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a San Diego
There she is.
dissertation.
That's her. There she is.
So then, and this is telling us it's available. It's in San Diego. So these are.
What does it tell you what year it was done?
Yep, 1993.
Oh, there. Okay.
And these are write-ups like directly above us, and that way are journals, and then after that are dissertations. And they're just alphabetical by surname. That one's old enough that it's probably not online in full text. But the other thing I was going to mention is there are lots of other ways of searching for dissertations done at Alliant. And if you follow this link right here for Alliant Theses, you can search by the chair, methodology, statistics, or what kinds of psychological instruments were used. And then, anybody have a chair that they want to?
Yes, Dr. Donald Diglio.
Oh, yes. Sort them by year. So he's got, what is it? 129. And it did the opposite of what I wanted, so let's sort it by reverse year. So this would have the newest ones on the top. And there's actually a...
so these are all the people he chaired.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's the chair on all of these dissertations. There's sort of a time lag, too, between when the online copy becomes available and when the bound copy goes on the shelf. So some of these might not be in ProQuest yet. So occasionally they come in handy for that.
These are the people who were just in January? It says 2009?
Probably not. They may have graduated like in May.
Oh.
So, yeah, as long as they... This would be more akin to the year of graduation. So.
Oh.
And occasionally people do that at different times of the year, too. Could have been December, could have been May.
So at the top, it says advisor 1 to 50. Is that how many people he's chaired? What is those numbers?
Yeah, it's showing us records 1 through 50 out of 129 total.
On that page. The 129 is the total people who
Right.
chaired.
And it's showing you them in groups of 50.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
Wow, he's been around a long time.
He's famous, yeah. Probably in much more demand than just the 129. Those are just the ones that he was able to do, but I'm sure there are many other people asking for his assistance. So then let's take a quick look at ProQuest digital dissertations just to see what that looks like. And we find that by going under research databases. And these are alphabetical by the name of the database. So ProQuest, let's see here. And this is kind of a persnickety database because it's a little fussy about how you format your searches, so I like to go into the advanced search.
And that was ProQuest Digital?
Dissertations and theses. And lots of different search options here. Citation and abstract is usually going to cover everything that you would want to look for. It is possible if you wanted to just see all the dissertations done by at USIU or at Alliant, you can search by school name. Excuse me.
But this is everywhere. So.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah. So the default is to just search in the citation and abstract for whatever term we put in, and it's going to show us things at schools all over the place from lots of different years too. So if it's before 1997, there will still be a citation and abstract for it. It just won't be available in full text. Okay. What's it called?
Change in the U.S. American Fulbright Scholar.
Oops.
Can't you just type your name in at the end? Would it come up?
That's sort of what I'm hinting at when it's persnickety, because depending on if you used a middle initial, or it can be kind of a pain to have to find it that way. So we'll see. Is it? I'm spelling Fulbright correctly. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, so we've found 6 documents that match that search.
What is number 4?
Where?
Beyond Taylor Brooks.
This one?
What's that?
Oh, there I am.
Oh, God, go on.
I'm Doug. I knew I did some work at one point.
And if we wanted to proofread it, we can just click on the full text link here.
Oh, is there a photo of her or something? What is she? Glass of champagne? Or
I'm having a visceral reaction. I'm starting to twitch again. It's coming back to me. Why am I doing this the second time? What was I?
You read my mind. I don't know why either.
Okay.
time on your hands.
I still love research.
Well, you know, Arizona where the sun was, you know.
So these are big documents, so that's why it's taken a while to load it, because it's basically like an entire book that's been scanned, and you'll see it page for page, and then you can download it, email it to yourself, save it on a flash drive, whatever works best for you. Probably not printing out the entire thing, please. Don't do that. Alrighty. Yeah, here we go. So that's just a disclaimer that they put on everything, and then here we go.
There you go.
Looks like they signed it. And then to save it locally, just like in any Acrobat thing, click there, save it, and that's it. So then we've got this copy that we could do whatever we want with. And typically what would be handy is to just head to the back and see if the bibliography is of any use to us, wherever it might be. Another nice thing is, and I don't know if this one has it or not, but sometimes you'll come across, maybe you're doing a dissertation trying to devise your own assessment instrument or something like that. And sometimes those, or prototypes of those, are published in either journal articles or dissertations. So it might be included in somebody's dissertation as an appendix, and that could be the only way that it's available. So good to keep in mind. So any questions about dissertations?
Why am I doing this kind of thing?
I'm sorry, I can't believe
It's a good question, but
You know, actually, that one has opened the doors, so I'm a university professor. That is good. It opens doors. But this one will allow me to become a therapist and go into private practice, and you can't do that with this.
I feel better now. I can know.
Yeah, there's
Very true.
Sorry, sanity.
one thing I should point out too, I mentioned that you'll find citations and abstracts for older dissertations in ProQuest, done any place. So if you wanted to get a hold of one of those, the thing that you would need to do is, there's two options. One stinks, the other doesn't. The one that stinks is buy a copy of it from ProQuest, and that's about $40. And I think they'll send it to you, they'll print it out and send you a hard copy that's loose leaf bound. The other one would be to try an interlibrary loan first. So you would just come back here and do an interlibrary loan request, and you'll see thesis dissertation is one of the options. Doing interlibrary loans for dissertations is not always a really happy outcome, because unlike books, the dissertation in hard copy only exists at one place, the place that you graduated from. So if they're willing to lend it to us, great. If not, then you're left with the other $40 option. Yes?
I just wanted to say, so you could go on this particular site and pull up someone's dissertation from Harvard or from...
Mm-hmm. Yep. And again, most of them are available in full text.
Cambridge and Oxford.
I'm not positive about those, because it's mostly North America, mainly like United States. ProQuest used to be called UMI. They're based it's University of Michigan or University of Microfilm, something. So they concentrate on this area. Alrighty, let's hop back over here and see what's next. Oops. So the next one is for us to talk about finding articles. And I think by now you've sort of got the gist of how we do it. We look locally, look through our network, and do an interlibrary loan if we have to. It's a little more complex with articles just because there's lots of different ways of getting to the same material. But what we're going to do for finding articles is, first we identify an appropriate database to be searching in at all. So that depends mainly on your subject. A lot of our databases are about psychology, obviously. There's also some that focus on business, social sciences in general, education. So if you need help picking a database, so you know where to look to begin with, consult us librarians, ask right now, whatever. So once you do the searching in the database, you're going to get a bunch of records. You want to see First of all, are any of them available in full text? If they are, fantastic. You just download it, read it. If not, if there's no full text link, or if it takes you to a brick wall that says, give me $25, then I'll show you how to double check and see if Alliant really does have online access to that journal, or if one of our campuses has a print copy of that article, which would also be an option. And if all of that strikes out, then we'll go back to the interlibrary loan option. So let's try that out. So again, research databases. This is where we're going to find everything. I'll just point out a few that are especially helpful. Academic Search Premier, this is sort of a big catch-all that when you search that, it searches a bunch of different sub-databases. So that's a good one especially for general interest topics. Alt Health Watch, for alternative health. Annual Reviews, that's a kind of a narrow focus on psychology. Business Source Complete is another big umbrella database that covers business literature. Skipping that one. Let's see. EBSCOhost Research Databases. This is another large umbrella database. Lots of different subjects in it. Education Research Complete. Along with ERIC, these are the best resources for any literature to do with teaching, credentialing, things like that.
What about finance?
Finance. A lot of that's going to be in Business Source Complete, and then it's also going to be in Emerald Management Extra. Those are the two top tier ones that we have for anything about money. Let's see. Actually, let me take that back. There's also LexisNexis. Tons and tons of the LexisNexis thing is legal and news, so it's got full text of all kinds of stuff in there. Lots of court documents, judicial opinions, things like that. Green File, I think this is somewhat related to the Bright Green MBA that's just started up, so a lot of people get some use out of it there. Medline, this is occasionally useful, especially for some of the psychopharmacology topics like that. Not a lot of full text available in Medline, so quite often we do have to interlibrary loan those.
What is the mental measurement yearbook?
That's we have online access to a series of reference books. It's published every year, and it's sort of like an encyclopedia that it has articles not on like rabbits and things, but on all the different psychological assessment tools that are made. So it'll tell you things like how it was developed, who the authors are, how it was tested or normed or whatever.
Why would PubMed not be out there?
It's actually Medline is another name for PubMed.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep. That's when like ERIC is. The index itself is government sponsored, and then it's repackaged by lots of different vendors. So occasionally it has a different name. Okie dokie, what else we got here? NetLibrary. We looked earlier at electronic books through our catalog. This is just a way of searching the NetLibrary collection exclusively. So if you knew you wanted something that's in there, then you could go directly to it. But you can get to the same place by starting with our catalog. ProQuest dissertations and theses we just went over. You'll notice all these psychology ones: psych articles, psych books, psych critiques, psych extra, psychiatry online, psych info. Psych info actually encompasses most of these, with the exception of psychiatry online, I believe. So if you search, instead of looking in all these different places, you can just search psych info and possibly psychiatry online, depending on your topic, and you'll find access to the same content that way.
And once you're finished with that, and you'll get to the structure, so we could find that example I'm trying to point out to you. Would you be able to select one of those so we can type something in and then...
Yes, absolutely.
There it will be.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's green glory.
Well, we hope. It'll either be there or we'll know for sure that we don't have access to it, so we have to order it.
Okay.
So, last few here, social science index with full text. These two social science databases are kind of handy for things that might be a little bit psychology, a little bit education, a little bit of everything. social science is usually a good place to look there. Scopus may or may not be of interest to you. This is what's known as a citation index. You may be familiar with an alternative product called Social Science Citation Index. And what that does is it lets you look up an article and see who has cited it since the time that it was published.
Interesting.
So academics, with the egos that they possess occasionally, they'll often, especially for purposes of tenure, look up their own name and see how many times their articles have been cited. It's actually, it's in many places it's required that they do that when they're trying to show what the impact of their research is.
Wonderful.
So if you typed in B.F. Skinner, it would show how many times you were cited.
It would, and you're not just searching for the author, but you're searching by particular publications too. So he probably has like 600 articles that he wrote. So you would pick out one that you're interested in, and then it would show you, it would link you to a list of papers that have cited that particular article.
What if I had a saying from one of them and I wanted to cite the source?
Mm-hmm.
How could I find that?
I found the article that you wanted. Remember you were saying, where did we hear it from?
Yeah.
And I found it.
That's a royal pain, isn't it?
Well, yeah, because I called the library to ask for help,
Mm-hmm.
and Deborah helped me. I was looking for this thing that.
I just felt it like I was reading something else and it was right there.
I guess this is a case where you've got a paragraph or something, but you can't remember where you got it. Is that right?
A concept.
Okay, sure.
It was a concept, and everywhere I looked, when we said look upon developmental models, look upon the arrested development, retarded development,
Mm-hmm.
still couldn't find it. And I talked to Dr. Lawson, I talked to other people that are specialists in substance abuse, and
What was it again?
it was, the saying that the age that you start using is the age development where you are when you begin sleeping at age 40.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's looking for, we always say, he's acting like he's 14.
Right.
When you come in. So where did that come from?
Yeah, I've heard the same concept with regard to abuse, that that development stops when the abuse started.
So I was reading a book, it's called History and Systems,
Mm-hmm.
and they quoted a psychologist who came up with the term.
What is it?
So it
Several
talks-
terms.
it talks about
Mm-hmm.
emotional maturity and how substance abuse arrests or stops
Right.
emotional maturity.
Mm-hmm.
And so that you can talk with someone who's been using, and you can tell when they started by just listening and observing the way they interact with the environment, and emotional maturity. And so it was either Adler or Maslow. And so, anyway, I get home.
But that doesn't answer her question.
Yeah,
She would find that. I didn't even know that was possible.
That you could look up a saying or a quote and see if you could find it. That's what she said.
Right, and really the only way of doing that is to consult people who might know, or to turn to Google and see what you can come up with.
I tried everything.
Yeah.
It was a good homework assignment.
Sometimes it helps too to not just use Google, but use the appropriate databases. It may be that you come across something that points you in the right direction, but that's one of the harder types of questions to solve.
So is it possible to use that particular?
Scopus?
Yes.
It wouldn't really benefit in your case, but it's available. Because Scopus is built around the idea that like the article that you're interested in, or that the author that you're interested in. But if you know the concept, then you're kind of out of luck with Scopus. That's why if you use Google, then it might lead you to some names of authors, and that would be something you could bring back and search in Scopus and see if it's likely to be what you're thinking of. All right, let's go back here. So that's just touching on a few of these different databases. The last one I mentioned earlier is WorldCat, and that's the same way Link Plus applies to these California libraries that we work with. WorldCat is the one that applies to just about every library in the world, and it's a good way of finding out if something that you're looking for even exists.
And you would search that by topic?
You can, yeah, it's sort of the Cadillac of searching. It's got about any kind of search combination you could look for.
Oh, that's similar to
isolation.
Yep.
I know self-imposed. I don't think that's obvious.
Let's try.
Self-imposed.
Punctuation is kind of weird sometimes, so I'm just going to use part of it. And if we wanted to, we could limit it by year that it was published. If we just wanted material in English, we could limit it by format too. So maybe we're looking for a sound recording or a website. A lot of those are cataloged too. So apparently we only found one item, and it's a dissertation.
Yeah, it's B. Du Bois right there.
Michigan School of Professional Psychology.
Okay. I'm going to have to give that person a class.
And since this was done so recently, you could get the full text of it in ProQuest dissertations.
Risky, I like it.
And then a lot of these databases have similar features. You can email this record to yourself, print it out, etc., etc. What else?
And so he has all the keywords in there.
Yeah, these descriptors are the official headings that I was talking about earlier. So it could be that race identity would be an important concept that we could search by also. And it's hyperlinked too, so if we just click on it, it'll do a search of those.
And the base page or the beginning page, what do you go into? I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. The way we got there is research databases.
Okay.
Down at the bottom.
Oh, okay. Just that.
WorldCat.
Okay, 2 steps.
Yep.
Gotcha. Search data.
Mm-hmm. And then just sort of a procedural thing, if you were to find, let's say, a dozen or so items in WorldCat that were interesting to you, what you would want to do is take that list, go back and start at the Alliant catalog, see if we own any of those. If we don't, check Link Plus. If we don't, do interlibrary loan. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's pick one of these, since we want to see some examples of looking for articles too. Let's go into PsycInfo. And again, we've got a lot of the same options here.
General psychology.
And did you...
Geriatric psychology.
Oh, okay.
Older adults.
Try that one. Okay, so it found 25 items. Actually, for the size of PsycInfo goes back to like 1887, so there's probably an alternative term that we want to find out about instead, but this is a good start.
What about elderly?
Well, I'm just really looking for that green thing. That's
right.
That's.
So let.
I mean, if you scroll down. Well, what? Yeah, there it is. Check link source for more. That comes up, and there are no PDF
I
options.
hate that thing. It doesn't do anything. Yeah.
What is that?
It's, let's see.
Just check.
It's totally useless.
And it doesn't allow you access to the document.
No.
I just don't know how to get to the document.
Right. And it's misleading because it doesn't do anything useful.
So why do you have it there?
It comes with. we pay for. EBSCO is actually the designer of this interface. So we subscribe through EBSCO, and that's a feature that's useful to some institutions, but we're not one of them. So let's use this as an example and see if we do have access to that. It was this one, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So the title of the article is Methods in Psychogeriatric Research. Click on that just to see the abstract. And so we might want to take a note of some of the alternative subject terms we could use, like geriatric psychiatry. Might be a good one to try later. But since we're not seeing anything on here that says full text link, you should either see something that says full text or PDF. If you don't see either one of those, what you want to do is, where are we? Source. We want to copy down the title of the journal that it appears in. And go back to our catalog. And I'm going to search the title of that journal in the catalog. We could also go to the list of online journals and do the search, but it works out to be about the same. So this tells us that we don't have American Journal of Geriatric Psychiatry. If we had database access to it in one of the packages that we subscribe to, it would come up here. If we had print copies of it at one of our campuses, it would come up here too. So at this point, we know that we know what article we want, but we know that Alliant doesn't have immediate access to it. So the next thing we want to do is just fill out an interlibrary loan request. And you're going to take the information from here, like the author of the article. Mainly the source is what we need, because it's got the volume, issue, date, and page range. So if you put all that stuff into an interlibrary loan request, then we can get a copy for you. Easy as pie. Yep.
And you said Link Plus, they don't do journals, right?
Correct. But when you're doing interlibrary loan for articles, again, keep in mind, you don't have to worry about where it is, because we're going to figure that out. So you just tell us as much as you can from here. I mean, if we recall what the interlibrary loan form looks like, there's a whole bunch of stuff here. So cited in, additional information, ISSN, OCLC number, all that stuff, don't bother with. It's nice if you can give us author, title, and then journal along with issue, volume, and pages. Should be plenty for us to find it. My pleasure. And that process that we just went through, that's the whole, in a nutshell, that's the discovery problem that I talked about. Because those are the only steps that you need to do to really confirm whether or not we have it. So in our librarian budgetary minds, it's given that it's fairly simple. Once we can get face-to-face with students who need to know it, we're sort of hesitant to spend tons of money on a discovery product that's going to smooth that along, when we could instead use that money to buy more databases. So we're trying to get the message out to people so they know how to use the system more effectively.
And you would then, with one article at a time, on this page you showed us.
Right.
At the bottom there's a button that sends it to whomever.
Right down here.
So that,
Yep.
you just do that over and over.
Well, ideally, knowing my luck, I'm not going to encounter any here, but as we go through these results, we're going to find that some of them, we do actually have full text of that. So let's see if we can find one. Try Annals of Clinical Psychiatry.
And see, that's funny, because that one just says add to folder. There's nothing.
Right. And the add to folder thing, a lot of these databases have a feature where you can create a user account for that database. And it gives you extra options, like you can save some records to a folder and then just email the whole folder to yourself instead of doing it individually. So that's really all that does. So let's try over here and see if we have access to that one. So Annals of Clinical Psychiatry, hopeful sign here, electronic resource. That means we do have some kind of online access to it. And then for a lot of databases, you saw that list of 40 that we subscribe to. It may be that a certain journal, we have more than one method of access to it. So maybe we have it through ProQuest, and we have it through EBSCO, and we have it through whatever else. So that's why you're going to find these different links here listed. And let's say from EBSCO, we have 1997 to 2003. From this other EBSCO link, we have 2004 and onward. So you would pick from these links based on the specific details of the journal that you're looking for. So I think the one that we're looking at here is 2007, right? Yes. So we're going to follow the link that should include 2007 and cross our fingers. And then this is just taking us to a record for that journal. And over here, you'll see the different years that we can try for. So we'll try 2007. Checking back at the citation, it is volume 19, number 3. So that's the one we pick here. And now you'll see that, oh look, PDF links. Why couldn't you tell us that before?
Methods in psychogeriatrics? Or no?
Review of mental disorders. Yeah.
Okay.
So we're just going to flip through these. And of course.
I've actually encountered that before, and sometimes it's before or after.
Mm-hmm.
It's not actually in the number 3. It's a little weird.
Yeah. And it's usually just publisher error. Either the publisher or the database company is getting incorrect information. So, let's see. In a few cases, it may be that, when they scanned that issue, maybe they didn't make that article available for whatever reason. Maybe they couldn't get publisher permission, or author permission, something like that. But it is definitely frustrating. But that would also be a case where, next step, do an interlibrary loan for it. So, because somebody's got it on paper, and then we can get a copy from them. This is the big, the payload for today's lecture. So let's back out of there. And it's regardless of what database you're in, things will look a little different, but that's really what the process is. We can try. Let's do one in. Somebody was interested in finance, right? I sort of like Emerald because it's, for a database provider, they actually do a relatively decent job of designing the interface, so it's a little easier to find out what you're looking for. Is there any particular finance aspect?
Private companies.
Okie dokie.
Actually, public companies going private is big.
How about spelling? And we could either search all the stuff they've got, or we could narrow it by format. They mostly have, through our subscription anyway, they mostly have journals. So we'll do that kind of search. And so here's one from private to public, the choice and requirements. Gives us a citation, but we notice right away there's a PDF link there. So. You do not have rights to view this article. Oh, that's nice. And of course they're charging for it. So, discouraging, but again what we do is we're going to take note of the, title of the journal. Head over here and see, I mentioned you can either search it here or list of online journals. List of online journals is sometimes nice because some of the journals have really generic titles. So there's a journal, Human Development. If you search Human Development in the catalog, you're going to get 6,000 books along with the title of the journal. So I'll put that in there, see if anything happens. And so it looks like we do, so there's some kind of technical problem going on here. It says that we do have access to it from 1994 to the present through Emerald Management. So we're supposed to have access to it from where we found it. This would be a good time to email library@alliant.edu.
Mm-hmm. And if you wanted recent, the most recent, say, since 2007.
Sure. Let's go back in and modify that search. This is the simple search, so we want the advanced search. Here. And down here is the date limiter. So if we include that, then we can go up and do the same kind of search as before. And again, they should have those search terms and be within the dates that we specified. And that looks like it did include it here. So.
Could I narrow it further with like Sarbanes-Oxley
Sure.
and private equity?
Yep. So we would go to modify search. Let's see. Where is it that I made? Oh, 54 results. And ideally, some of these will be available in. There we go.
Look at that. That's great.
That's the way it's supposed to work, unfortunately. And
It's a tough subject. It's hard to find information.
yeah. And again, in Business Source Complete might mention some things, and if it's not in there in full text, obviously interlibrary loan. Another thing, you're probably aware of this already, when you find gems like this one, you want to go to the bibliography and just go through that, item by item, and anything that looks useful, you've got the citation right there, so all you have to do is see if we have the journal, if we have it online. If we don't, do an interlibrary loan for it. And in my opinion, you read that article, you order everything that's in the bibliography, you're done searching for the day.
Let's say you wanted to look up something by a university, like Howard University, you would want to see their dissertations or something.
Sure.
Could you do it that way too?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for that we would go back to, help me out, ProQuest, Dissertations and Theses, and under Advanced Search, one of these indexes is for school name. And sometimes it's kind of picky, but yeah, this should be all right. Like to use ourselves as an example, if you wanted something from the history of Alliant, you would have to search for Alliant. You might have to search for CSPP in some cases. In other cases, you would need to search USIU. So you sort of have to know the background of the place that you're looking for.
One guess what I'll be doing.
And again, this is searching dissertations done at Howard University. If you keep in mind that Howard University might have its own university press, they might publish their own journals. So those things we would look for someplace else. Probably in WorldCat, because.
Very interesting. That's great.
So again, is there anything else?
Big business school. You could look for stuff.
Any other questions about the? Yes.
I have a question. I had to, for example, this wasn't this was my dissertation, obviously, but for a specific class, I had to have a certain number of citations from a certain journal. And so when I looked up, for example, it was TESOL Quarterly.
Right.
When I tried to look up my subject within TESOL Quarterly, the best I could do, and I tried all different search engines or whatever to try to do it, the best I could do was just get a list of articles, a list of journals that I had to go click through bit by bit by bit. So are there other journals or other search engines where you can actually make that search effectively?
Like with that journal title, I think would be indexed in ERIC.
Yes.
So you probably went into ERIC, specified the journal name, TESOL Quarterly, and so you also included some terms, probably like secondary school or whatever it is, and didn't find enough that way, right?
Nothing. It just wouldn't give me anything that way.
Yeah.
The best it would do is just listed all the TESOL. And I literally looked from 2009 back to 2000, every single one of them.
That's the foolproof way.
Very effective. That's
Yeah.
what I did. But
That way you know you didn't miss anything, but unless it's some sort of off-the-wall topic, it's probably a case of there's another term for it that they're using. The other thing would be, if you went through all those things, did you eventually find what you were looking for? Or?
well, I just I did it the ineffective way. I found tons. And so
Okay.
I tried a ton of different terms.
Mhm.
I was looking for, it was pretty general. It was
Right.
basically cultural implications on language learning.
Hmm.
And I looked up race, ethnicity, all sorts of things.
Mhm.
And ultimately, I found a couple, one entire quarterly journal on race, ethnicity, and all those facts. So it wasn't that it wasn't there. I found plenty.
Just indexed badly.
Yeah.
But you were wondering if there was a more efficient way to go about that, rather than having to scroll through and read everything.
Right. In the future, say I need to,
Sure.
I want a school psychology review, and I want something specifically from that.
That would be so wonderful if it were possible.
The best thing that I would recommend is, when you start going through them article by article, and you come across one that's really good, is to look that up in the database and see how it's indexed and see what subject headings are applied to it, and then try searching on those instead. That way you, instead of searching and not knowing the right name for what you're looking for, you know what term they're using to call what you're thinking of, and hopefully you can connect them that way. And if you might have to do that with more than one article too. So maybe you go through 5 issues manually and pick out 3 articles, and I would just try the terms from those. But if you're really desperate, then sometimes the only way to do it, if it's not indexed appropriately, is to go through it and piece by piece. Especially, I think ERIC can be like that because it's been in existence for so many, like 30, 40 years, that there's a lot of variation in the quality depending on what time period you're looking at too. Other questions on article searching? Okay. I just wanted to, we're getting close to the end here, but there are some tools that may be of use to you. Usually I wouldn't spend a lot of time on this with undergrads or people in grad programs, but when you're doing a dissertation, you're in there for the long haul anyway. So what can be handy is to set up different technologies so that you don't have to keep doing these searches. After you hit upon a good search for a certain database, if you want to just monitor new things that pop up in that database as they're added, then there's different methods of doing that. So you'll get an email update about it, or it'll turn up in your RSS reader, whatever method you choose to use.
Sorry, I don't know that. An RSS.
I'll explain. Before I do that, though, I added a couple others on here too. These are just alternatives for you to keep in mind if you're striking out in a literature search. Listservs, everybody familiar with those? Yeah, it's like a mailing list or a bulletin board where people discuss a certain topic. Like there's listservs for law librarians or for people working on the Human Genome Project, and they talk about anything related to that. So sometimes it's a good idea to join one of those listservs for your topic. And if you're really having trouble finding resources, you can post a question to it, and hopefully somebody with some expertise will get back to you. They might be able to point you in the right direction. Forums are another option. Depending on what your topic is, there may be online communities that are devoted to the same interest, and that's a place where you can read other people's conversations or ask questions. These are sort of things to keep in mind if you're, like I said, if you're running up against a brick wall. Directly contacting authors is another good one to keep in mind. Quite often, like I mentioned earlier, if you're looking for a certain assessment tool or something, and you know who devised it, but you have no idea if it was ever published or how to get a hold of it, you can try finding that person, especially if they work at a university. That makes it really easy. And just shoot them an email. Tell them, this is what I'm working on. I'm interested in using some of your work. Do you have it available, and would you be willing to share it? It's one of my favorite things to do when students ask for something really bizarre like that, is just see who wrote it, find out where they're teaching, send them an email. Usually they've got this stuff sitting on their desk as a Word document, and they can just wing it on over to you. And they're thrilled to do it, believe me. I mean, if somebody asked you for an article that you wrote, you'd be probably happy to share it. So they respond the same way. To get back to specifics, though, let's just look at one of the databases again. And let's see. Let's go back to PsycInfo. So I'm just going to briefly talk about the two options of having the information come to you, and that's RSS and email alerts. Pretty sure everybody knows how to use email, right? So all we're going to be doing is we do a search, we tweak it to get it just right so that it's pulling in all the information we want, and then in most of these databases, there's going to be a very simple few clicks that we do, and it basically stores that search, runs it cyclically, daily, weekly, monthly, whatever you specify, and sends you the output of the search to the email address that you give it. So that way you don't have to remember to keep checking to see if anything new is out. It just comes to you. Anybody use RSS? Yeah? Okay. RSS stands for just about anything you want, but officially it's really simple syndication, and it's the technology that blogs use to distribute content. So the way that works is you have a an application called an RSS reader that collects all the different blogs or feeds that you follow. And anytime that blog or that website posts new content, it sends a summary of that to your reader. So one of the ones that people commonly use is Google Reader because it's free and it's tied to your Gmail account. Let's see. I'll just show you what it looks like. So I have these organized into folders. You can do that or don't have to. And each one of these, like this is a certain blog that I read every day. Consumerist is what it's called. So what this list is these are new stories that were posted on that blog recently, and it's just sending me aggregated updates, that's why they call these aggregators, of each article. So, and this blog Consumerist is about consumer affairs and getting a fair deal from different companies, things like that. So for any of these that I was interested in, I can just click here, see part of the story. And if I want to follow this link, I can go out to the Consumerist website and then read more about it. Sort of cute, I mean, lets you keep up with sports teams and things. But if you extrapolate this and apply it to doctoral research, then instead of tracking this kind of niche website, it can track the topic that you're researching, and when new articles are written about it, it links you directly to those.
Excuse me, can you show us how to get into it again?
Sure.
But you need a Gmail account, though,
right? Yep. If you have a Gmail account, you actually have Reader also. You just need to click a couple things and it'll be set up.
So, I mean, I have Google, so I just do the pull-down menu and go to Reader?
Yep.
And then type in what I want?
Yep. Actually, no. To set this up, you have to add subscriptions to your Reader.
Okay.
And it's basically like taking an internet address, copying it, and pasting it into another place.
Okay, so how would I do that? I mean, can you just...
Let's find out.
Give me an example.
Sure. So over here in EBSCO, let's do a search for isolation.
We go to EBSCO first.
Yep. EBSCO, I could pick another database too, because most of them do it now.
Okay.
And the thing you want to look for is this little orange doohickey. And that is the symbol for RSS. So if I click on that, what it's going to do is take all the search stuff that I defined up here. Here I only did one term, but I could have put isolation between the years 1990 and 1992, whatever. In a certain journal, it's going to take all of that and encapsulate it into a link. So I'm going to click on that. And it comes up with this saying, so if I want to subscribe to this RSS feed, this is the link that I need to copy. So I'm just going to right-click on that, copy it, and then get rid of that. I go back to my Reader, and I want to add a subscription. Hope this works. Just pasting the same link in, and click on Add. And nice. Way to go, EBSCO. Theoretically, what should happen is... that's not right. There would be a new subscription listed here, and over in this space here, there should be a list of all the articles that match it.
It says alert cannot be found. Is that saying they're not letting you in, or is that saying they can't find the article?
It's basically, there's something wrong with the address that they generated here, so let's try this again. Yeah. Yeah, it worked that time. So it's giving you, it's sort of like a stream that comes to you without you having to do anything. All you have to do is open up your Reader and scan through it. So if I looked at all these titles and I thought, that's ridiculous, I don't care about that, I just mark all of them as red, and they don't appear anymore. If there were, like maybe I wanted to look at this one later, I could follow the link right now. I could give it a star, which means I can always go back to it later if I want to. So this should take me over to database. Yes. So here I can find out, I can read the abstract. Looks like this is not available in full text, so I could go ahead and do an interlibrary loan if I wanted to. After, of course, checking to make sure. So,
That's great.
yeah, it is kind of handy, especially since when you do the dissertation, you're sort of following your topic for a number of the years that you spend writing it. So it's a good thing to fairly early on identify the searches that you want to have repeated, and then you can just have the information come to you without having to go through a whole lot of searching.
You know the number of years we spent writing it?
I did. I'm sorry about that.
For months. I'm not going to be here years.
Sort of the easier version, the RSS is the harder one to understand because you have to use this new thing called a reader. The easier version is just to create an alert that works by email. And same principle though. So we click there to create the alert, I think. Let's go. Oh, create an alert. Thanks. And for this to work, you have to create a free account on EBSCO. And the only reason for that is that way you enter in your email address and it knows who to send the stuff to. So once you sign in, it'll know where to send the updates, and you tell it how often you want to receive updates, if you want the brief one or a detailed version that includes an abstract. Bibliographic manager. I don't know if anyone uses things like EndNote to manage citations. Yeah. So it'll include a formatted document that'll let you import it into whatever application you're using.
Address.
Mm-hmm.
Your personal email, or does it have to be your Alliant?
Nope. Anything you want. And that happens when, like, if I were to click on sign in, it's going to ask me to either log in or create an account. Also up here, I think.
Is there a part 2 to the EndNote?
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit tomorrow.
Okay.
We're going to talk about citation managers in general. EndNote is kind of a pain, I find, but there's some alternatives that are really handy. So.
How about a OneNote?
I'm sorry, OneNote?
OneNote, yeah.
I've heard of that one. I'm not directly familiar with it.
Microsoft, we don't have to buy.
Oh, that's right. It's a plugin for Microsoft Word. Yep. Yeah, EndNote it's kind of expensive. It's like $250, isn't it? Yeah. But the other ones that we'll talk about tomorrow, one is called Zotero, and it's a free plugin for Mozilla Firefox. And then there's a fairly new one called Mendeley, which is really, yes, that's nice. It's sort of like iTunes for your research. So not only does it organize all your research documents and index them and make them into a mini searchable library, but it backs them up for you. So you can have like a whole folder full of the PDFs of articles that you're tracking. It's going to back those up on the internet. So if somebody steals your laptop or pours soda on it, you're still going to have all of your research material sitting out there for you. So.
How do you spell that?
Mendeley, Mendeley. And it's free. We like free. So, yes, that one is tomorrow. Tomorrow what we're going to do is, the first half will be me again, and I'll be talking about some general writing tips, and then spending some time on each of those citation managers that I just mentioned. And then the second half will be Todd Havert from the Writing Center, which is part of the Academic Support Center. And he'll talk to you for a few minutes here, and then he's going to take you over to his side of campus and show you where Thursday's session will be held. And I think he's going to introduce you to some of the software that they use. I think they use RefWorks, which is another option for you. So I think that is about it. Any questions or anything else?
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And let's see. There was something important here, but let's see what it is. Oh, yeah. So just keep in mind these three things. Library.alliant.edu. Get in touch immediately, all the time, before you spend money or get frustrated or do any of those things. and don't pay for anything. Yeah, yeah.